What's up? As you can see, there is a little bit of a change of scenery today. We will be in the studio in just a second, but right now it is a complete disaster because what I'm doing today and what I'll be vlogging in this video is tearing apart my entire studio, and I have a couple different goals for today. Number one, I want to take everything out, take everything off my desk, empty out my racks, and then I want to give everything like a nice, good cleaning. And then what I want to do is I want to kind of rebuild my rack with some of the new gear that I've bought. So I have to incorporate like a Ferrofish Pull 16. I have to like really incorporate my Opto compressor and my Neve Newton channel strip. And I'm reincorporating Patchbays into my setup. So I'm going to set all of that up in my sidecar today. And then I really just want to redo all of my cable management and get the studio looking really organized and clean, because right now it's a little bit disheveled, it's a little bit disorganized, and I have gear that I've been using but is not fully incorporated. So today I'm tearing it all apart, putting it back together. I do have a couple things that I need to, kind of let you know if you're doing this, you should have on your checklist. Number one is like actually have a plan of what you want to do, especially in terms of like routing a patch bay. So I already have my entire patch bay labeled. I know exactly where everything's gonna go. I have a really procedural step-by-step process. And after that, you're gonna want some kind of like label maker. So I actually have labels for my patch bay, but I'm gonna label all of my cables on both ends so I can tell immediately like, this is my monitor left cable, this is my monitor right cable, this is my Roland Juno DS88 cable, just so if I get to the point where things aren't where I think they are when I turn my computer on and when I start laying out all of my consoles, everything's at least labeled on the cable so then I can swap them out really easily. I'm gonna use a duster to obviously get everything nice and clean. If the audio sounds a little bit different today, it's because we're using these little DJI clip mics, so it's not gonna be like the most high fidelity audio, but it should be okay. We've got some cable management stuff, so we've got cable ties, cable Velcros, we've got like cable trays that we're gonna install on my desk. So we have a lot to get into today. Okay, so right now everything is a mess. So the first step that I'm doing is taking all of the new cables I bought, all of the new gear that I bought, and just kind of laying it out and organizing it. So like we have DB25 cables, we have 1/4-inch snakes, we have XLR patch cables, we have XLR female to TRS, we have XLR male to TRS, basically just everything that I'm gonna need. My next step is to start actually taking apart this sidecar and everything in this. Okay, everything is cleared out of the rack now. Everything is unplugged from my entire setup. The room is an absolute disaster, but it's time to start plugging things in. So what I think I'm gonna do is go from bottom to top, because the way that I have my rack laid out is power up at top, power up at bottom, and then I'm actually going most of my I/O from the bottom to the top. So all of my big cable management can kind of sit on the floor. So I'm gonna have my Ferrofish, and then I'll have my Audient preamp right above that, and then I'll have my RME interface right above that, and then I'll have my patch bays above that. So I'm gonna do all of those step by step. That way I don't have a million wires to cross when I'm trying to do, 16 to 30 channels of in and out. And then once I get to like the preamps and the compressors and stuff like that, it is much easier because those only have a couple cables a piece. So right now it is completely empty. I'm gonna try to work on this and see how quickly we can get this done. I've been working for like 35 minutes, 40 minutes, just getting everything unplugged and organized. So now it's time to actually start setting stuff up.
5 hours later.
So I'm pretty much done actually. I got everything hooked up. I'll show you a little video of the back. Everything's looking pretty good. I just tested it. Everything's working out well. We'll go over the rack in 1 second. Okay, so I'm on my phone, so the audio might be a little bit different, but here is the back of my top rack. And then all of that comes into here. It looks like a mess on camera, but it's pretty organized. I can get to any cable I need to pretty quickly. Cable management wise, it's pretty good. There's only this one little strip of strings coming from my desk, and then everything else is kind of tucked behind here. I am going to mount some of these to the actual like case, but other than that, it should be good. I just finished. I have all my pedals up top, and then I have a Newton channel strip, a Heritage Audio HA81A, and a Pod HD just to get kind of guitar tones while I'm tracking. And then under here, we've got the compressors up top. Then we have an XLR patch bay. Then we have a 1/4-inch patch bay. Then we have my RME UFX2. Then we have my Audient like ASP 800 just for 8 preamps. Then we have the Ferrofish, what is this, Pull 16, basically like a 16 channel line in, line out interface, and then power. And yeah, I'm actually gonna go take a shower and then I'm gonna explain how I actually set up this Patchbay. But I will say to start out, if you set up a Patchbay, you should definitely get these little stickers from Trace Audio. Not sponsored, they're like 25 bucks, but you can kind of custom make your whole Patchbay. So everything is super, super organized. I will say too, I went ahead and just kind of reorganized my little patch wall. I just have one of those little pegboards. And so I have everything to where I've got like 1/4 inch patch, I've got XLR patch, I've got TRS to XLR female, TRS to XLR male, instrument cables, mic cables, like speaker cables, long mic cables, all kinds of stuff, power cables, and then this is just like the light and everything that I use. So I'll cover this more in like a studio tour, but just know that this is where all my extra cables are. All right, so it's actually been a few days since I left off. Everything in the studio is working out perfectly. I had a chance to try it, but if you were thinking to yourself, damn, Austin kind of sounds and looks like shit in the first half of this video, it's actually because we had just gotten back from Mexico, and it turns out that we brought COVID back as a nice little souvenir. So I was under the weather. I'm still a little bit congested, but I'm feeling much, much better. I figured I would actually show you why I laid out my Patchbay how I did and kind of what my studio I/O looks like. And the best way I can do that is just by actually going over everything on the computer. So when you're setting up your studio, the first thing that I recommend doing is kind of keeping in mind what you actually need for your studio. Do you track live drums? Do you track vocals? Do you track anything, or do you just need inserts for hardware when you mix? Are you working with a hybrid setup? Everybody's studio is so different. I have friends that make big records on a 2-channel interface, and I have other friends that have a fucking 64-channel Pro Tools rig that's all outboard. And it really just depends on what you want and what you need. So for my studio, for my personal needs, I like to have 8 to 12 different mic ends just in case I want to pack everything up and go record drums, or if I want to do a bunch of big mic shootouts. I also like having 2 line ends for the channel strips that I have, the Newton and the HA81A. Since those have preamps built in, they don't need to go in through a preamp, so they go in through a line input. And then I need to have line inputs for all of my outboard synths. So my DS88, my 106, my Polybrute, and my Moog Subsequent 37. So those all need line inputs. And then I'm starting to work with like pedals and doing reamping and stuff. So I need 2 extra line ends to do stereo pedals, any kind of stereo insert effects, any kind of stereo reamping. So those are all my ends. I need, it looks like 11 line ends, and then 12 mic ends. And then I need 2 line outs for my monitors, monitor left and monitor right. And then I just need a couple extra line outs for like inserts, reamping, the pedals that I was just talking about. And so that's typically what my studio setup looks like. And the way that I'm doing that is with my interface, I have the RME UFX2. So that has 4 mic/instrument inputs on the front, which are really nice. I can plug into them immediately, but you can't really patch those unless you want to route it in the matrix to send them back out. Not worth it to me. So I just use those as like a plug and play option. When people bring something and they need to plug it in, it's right on the front of my rack. It's super, super easy. So those don't go to a Patchbay at all. And then I have the 8 line inputs, so I'm using 1 for my Newton, 1 for my HA81A, I'm using 2 for my Juno 106, 2 for my Polybrute, 1 for my Sub 37, and 1 that I like to just leave open for if I want to, send anything through a line in, and I have those all connected to my Patchbay. For the line outs, I have my monitors, and then I just have my line out 3 and 4, so I can send stuff out of Cubase through any of my gear in the real kind of world, and then I can just send it back in through one of my open line inputs. So what I'm using to get all of those extra line inputs that I need and the mic pre's that I need is this Audient ASP800. It's basically 8 mic preamps, and the first 2 have this thing called HMX, which is just like some saturation and some different tone characteristics. So I have all of those hooked up. I had the 2 HMX ones actually routed to my Patchbay, and then I just have the normal kind of 6 mic pre's just going straight for conversion. I'm not going to ever really send those out to other things. They're just kind of junk mic pre's that I have just in case I need extra inserts. And then other than that, I have the Ferrofish Pulse 16. I used to use this Audient ASP800 as an ADAT unit. However, the ADAT board on it actually shit the bed completely, and I didn't want to spend a few $100 to fix it. So what I did was just had my friend replace some of the fuses, and now I can just use this as analog preamps. And the way that I'm actually getting those into my interface now is by using this Ferrofish Pulse 16. So this gives me 16 channels of line ends. So I'm using 8 of those for the Audient ends, and then I'm using 2 of those for the DS88, 2 of them for my little Pod HD Pro X,
and then I have a few open ones still. And this is MIDI, so if I ever want to have it as a MIDI connection instead of just like a ADAT connection, I can easily swap that over and get a bunch of extra channels that I can connect. So that's what I'm doing for all of my I/O. Now that I've showed you that, let's actually go over what my Patchbay is looking like. So I'm gonna pull it up right here. I have my XLR Patchbay. This is basically just where I plug in my mics. So if I have my Eden, or if I have my Lewitt 1040 or my Advanced Audio 251, I can just pick what channel I want to plug it in. So I have my Newton, my HA81A, the HMX1, HMX2, and then my other kind of 6 just Audient junk mic pre's. And then what happens is these don't go to the Patchbay at all. Those just go straight into my Ferrofish. But these actually do come down to the Patchbay. So let's say that I plug it into this Newton, right? That's XLR Patchbay 1. I just have that normaled so it'll go into my Newton. So if let's just say I'm gonna select orange. Let's say I plug in a mic here. It's gonna come from here to here. That's what's called a normaled connection. So I don't need a cable connecting those. It automatically will flow. And so if I'm going into my Newton, it's naturally gonna come out of my Newton. So this is why I have a Patchbay. I don't really need it just to have everything plugged in all at once. I have it so I can kind of swap things out, choose my preamps, choose my compressors, send synths to preamps and synths to different, pedals, because otherwise your connections are pretty solid. So let's just say I have this mic coming out of my Newton. Let's say that I want to have it just go straight into my optical compressor. I'm going to take this and I'm going to actually, let me get a black cable. This will kind of signify a patch cable. I'm going to go from my Newton out to my Opto compressor in, and then I'm going to go from my Opto compressor out back into my RME line 1, which is just what I have as my HA, or what I have as my Newton channel. So we're going from my mic into the Newton, out of the Newton into the Opto, out of the Opto into my line 1. Let's say that we want something different, right? Let's say that we want to go from the Newton to the 1176. That's a normal connection. It's already going there, and then it's already coming out of my 76 out right here. So let's say I want to take that into my Opto compressor. That's going to go into Opto in, Opto out's going to go into line. Let's try something a little bit different. Let's say that I want to send my Polybrute through some pedals, right? So instead of my Polybrute just naturally normaling to line 5 and line 6, I'm actually going to take a cable and I'm going to take that out of my actual Patchbay. So it's going to come out. I'm going to have 2 1/4-inch cables that I can plug into my pedals that I keep kind of on top of my rack. And then once I do everything that I want, I can send my pedals back in through let's just say that they're going to return here, through the line inputs. So that allows me to come out of my Patchbay and then plug everything back in rather than having to reach around and unplug everything. Let's say that instead of using my Newton, I want to use my HA81A. I'm going to plug my mic into the HA81A input. It's going to come from here to here, and then it's going to come out of my HA81A out. And let's say I want to send that into my 1176. I'm going to take that, boom, pop that right there, take my 76 out. Let's say I want to go straight into my interface. Boom, we're going back into line 2. Let's say I want to take that 76 out and I want to go into my Opto, connect that right there, and then boom. Actually, that's a normal, so you wouldn't even need a connection. It would just naturally flow down. And so that's why I've incorporated a Patchbay, and that's why I have it all set up like this. So all of my outs are on top, all of my ins are on the bottom, and essentially I just have my mics right here, I have preamp outs right here, compressor outs right here, synth outs right here, and then just my HMX outs. And I left a couple open ones, so as I start adding lunch boxes and extra preamps and extra compressors, I still have room to keep expanding. Let's say that I have like a snare drum in my DAW, like in Cubase, I want to send out through my 1176. What I would do is in Cubase, I would select out 3 as the output for that track, and then it's going to come out of my RME out 3. Let's take that into the 1176 in, and then let's have the 1176 out just go right back into, I don't know, whatever open one we have. So let's just say Faro N7 is completely open at that time. I can drag it back in there, and then I can basically just let Cubase play it through while I adjust the 1176 or run it as an insert, and now everything is all set up. So that's essentially how I'm using my Patchbay. That's why I have it set up exactly how I do. A big shout out to my friend Drew Fredrickson, who is actually the one who helped me come up with the most efficient way to lay out everything so everything would be as normal as possible. I don't want to have a million patch cables in here if I don't have to. So I have it set up to where, like, my normal vocal chain just kind of naturally flows. I only need like 2 patch cables to finish that up. And if I want to swap that to my other preamp, I only need like 2 patch cables. It should never really be filled with cables unless I'm just doing some insane shit. So thank you to Drew for actually helping me figure that out. Thank you to my friend Bailey for actually fixing that ASP 800 for me. But that is pretty much how I'm leveling out all of my I/O, how I'm handling all of my different, routing and patching and stuff like that. This is just using that Trace Audio website that I talked about earlier to print the stickers. So this is exactly what my Patchbay looks like and is labeled like. And that is it. So if you have any other questions about my studio or about my Patchbay or about my ins and outs, please let me know in the comments down below. I will answer those as efficiently as I possibly can. If you want to see a full studio tour with all of my gear and a more in-depth look of what everything's actually doing, let me know and I can do a whole video on that. But that's going to do it for this video. My voice is already starting to give out, and I will see you guys soon with more content. Make sure that you subscribe. We do videos like this every single Friday. And if you want to support us, head over to our website, makepopmusic.com. We have sample packs, preset packs, MIDI packs, courses, all kinds of really, really cool stuff, including a bunch of free content. So go check that out. That's makepopmusic.com. There is a link in the description. And other than that, I'll see you next week with more content. Much love. Peace.